Hey guys, we're so excited that you are part of this exclusive training in the League of Experts. We're your master coaches. My name is Mwale.
Chantel,
And
welcome. I know that many of you are staying up a little later just to be a part of this experience. Others of you are just getting off work. So we are excited to be here to really share with you really some important tips that we've learned along our journey of being coaches, authors, and speakers so that you too can up level if you're currently speaking or get started if you've never landed a signature keynote speech before.
So, our commitment at the League of Experts is to help you and to support you to craft your core intellectual property and monetize that as a sustainable business.
That's key. Because it's good if you got it, the gift to speak, the gift to write books, the gift to craft amazing courses. However, no one's paying you for what you've got, then there's something missing. So we want to help close those gaps for you.
So as we close those gaps, as Chantel shared with you, this space is designed to close those gaps. And more importantly, as you craft those core intellectual property, be it your book, in this training, we're talking about your keynote. We want you now to move through the process of crafting not just any ordinary keynote, but an unforgettable keynote.
Ooh, yes.
That allows you to connect to your ideal client, where that client now moves to be a part of your community, where there's conversion. And more importantly, you are creating community that is lasting. It has the stick factor. So let's go down into the content for today's training. I know you're locked on figuring out how to craft a keynote speech, and more importantly, how to craft an unforgettable keynote speech.
Absolutely. So we are excited about this opportunity. And I want you to type in the chat, I am ready for my keynote. I am ready for my keynote, because unless you claim it, then it'll easily escape you, right? But we must claim that which we want and that which we want to continue to get, all right? So type in the chat, I am ready for my keynote, and let's get ready for it.
So in crafting your keynote speech, we're going to be discovering our goal for today's training is to discover clearly. You will know the key components of landing and crafting an unforgettable keynote speech. All right, so it's not going to be your usual run of the mill. If you have those notes that you've been using over and over again, we're going to challenge what you know. We're going to disrupt what you've been practicing. All right, and if you're okay with being disrupted, type in chat, disrupt me. All right, if you're okay with going to that next level, because that's where growth is found, right? In the places where you haven't traveled before. And more importantly, we want you to really lead with service so that you could truly craft and deliver an unforgettable keynote speech.
Right. So let's first of all talk about how to even land one in the first place, right? I don't want to go into this thinking that everyone has already given a signature keynote speech. So this is for those of you who maybe never have even approached a company to get one before, or you have already been in the game for a while, but you're looking to have some more consistency in how you actually get booked. So here's the deal. You first have to know your goals, and your goal is immediately attached to a company that meets that goal. For example, if your goal is to impact university students, well, the organizations that have university students are going to be colleges, trade schools, and universities. So what we recommend is being very clear on who your intended audience is, right? If your audience are women who are divorced, find out where those women who are divorced gather, and then make what we call a Dream 50 list. A Dream 50 list is a list of organizations that you would ideally want to speak to. It could be as big as Coca-Cola to as small as the Boys and Girls Club in your local community. But the idea is that you actually write down these names and these organizations so that you have a target, because that target is going to be a part of your game plan, right? That's point number 2, is the game plan.
So as you craft that game plan of your Dream 50 list, you see, this is all part of discovering your ideal client. And you want to be able to craft a keynote speech that is in line with the audience that you're called to serve, the people you have the solution to, and more importantly, being able to have what is called qualified conversations. Because how many of us are tired either, okay, I got a keynote speech, but you're in front of the wrong audience. How many of us are tired of leveraging pictures on stages, but there's no future conversation? Come on, just say that's me. And how many of us, when you now have the courage to say, okay, I'm going to do keynotes, your first target is what we call low friends opportunities, or is a term we use in trainers called easy pickings or low hanging fruits. But not because it's easy to go and speak at a community center or speak at your friend's organization, does that mean it's a qualified conversation?
Absolutely. And to your point, I remember, and this is key, because research is so important so that you can not only speak to people, but speak to the right people.
That's right.
Right. So that Dream 50 list is so key. I remember when I left the university, you remember I was a professor at Clark Atlanta. I got to jog his memory because it was a little in the beginnings of when we first started dating. And, I wanted to really speak on college campuses, right? Coming out the classroom, I said, I still want to have an impact, right? Even though I don't want the demand of being a professor. So I sat in my closet, and my closet was the office at the time. So I didn't just sit there, but I went in my closet and typed on my computer, and I literally had the understanding that I really had to be laser focused in how I was going to pitch myself for these engagements. So I literally took an Excel sheet, Googled about 4 hours worth of Google time, and wrote down every historically Black college, because I had it on tiers. I said, okay, I went to a HBCU, so I can speak to that audience. Historically Black colleges was on my list. And then I went to a PWI for my master's, so they were my second tier audience, and I made a list of those. So at the end of that 4-hour research period, I had about 150 colleges and universities, and that was my dream 150 list. So for you, you're going to write a dream 50 list and have those targets, because this next part of your game plan is going to be what moves you from just wanting to speak, desiring, to actually landing your keynote speech.
Now, I want you guys to, let me unpack or discover what Shanta just dropped there, because there was something key, and I'm really glad that you shared that. Chantal tied her experiences to specific organization. That's what she just did. So she's, number one, she tied her experiences to the organizations, and then she segmented that list. So in your market research, see where are those commonalities. Your lived experiences, number one, your formal training experiences that you can tie directly to institutions and organizations, so that there is either a familiar bond, or your skills, your assets, your brilliance can bring a easy knowledge transfer. So some people do it by sororities. If you have a relation to the person who is booking, and you see on their LinkedIn page, hey, they've been part of my alma mater, etc. So look for those commonalities based on your professional training and experience, expertise, or lived experiences. Then segment those lists so that you have a clear target audience, one, and more importantly, a focused marketing strategy on the list. So I hope that's helpful to you. So now let's move, as Chantal indicated, how do you now prepare yourself for the conversation? Let's type it in chat, the conversation.
The conversation that is going to open the door for you. So once you have your Dream 50 list, and by now you should know that names are good, but contact information is even better. So add to that list their contact details, and you're going to give them a call, right? Start easy. Start with the one that you think may not answer, just to get in the habit of moving the muscle of picking up the phone. Call those individuals, those organizations, and have an exploratory conversation, which goes something like this. Hi, my name is Chantal, and I noticed that you have speakers come in to give value to your community, right? You can be very specific. Hey, I'm Chantal, and I noticed that last year you had Mwale come to your campus to speak to your students, right? Or you can be general, like I mentioned earlier. I'm calling because I'm actually a specialist in the area of health and wellness. And I want to know, what are you looking to solve? What problems are you looking to solve that your next speaker would have the solution for? Right. So ask them, you can rephrase it like this. I'm a health and wellness coach, and I'm interested in speaking at your university. What are the current problems that your organization is experiencing with your students that you're looking to have someone help with, right? So you'll get comfortable with the language, but it has to have those key components: an introduction of who you are, and a very direct question. What problems you got? Hey, I know you got some issues, right? What are they? Because the idea is that you don't want to just craft a keynote speech. You want to actually craft one that solves the problem that the organization has already told you that it has.
Well, secondly, in addition to Chantal's point, you could use what we call bridge conversations. So Chantal mentioned the history. I saw that you brought XYZ to speak. And then you say, based on the theme of that event, are you guys still focusing on, let's say, mental wellness? Or is there a new focus or a new vision or a new focus that the organization is looking at? So it does two things. One, it shows that you're paying attention. And two, your conversation is solution oriented and is being tied into their agenda, not your agenda. Because the worst thing that you can do, hear this, the worst thing you can do is keep sending your speaker sheets, just blasting it to people and saying, this is what I do, fit me in your program. Or you're actually saying, fit your program into me. That's what your speaker sheet is saying. Tie your entire vision, your strategic planning meeting that you had 6 months ago that prepared for 2023, your strategic departmental vision casting, your strategic goal that you probably did for the past 3, 4, 5 years. You are actually telling the organizer, the organization, the institution, forget all of that. Scrap all of that. All those hours of work that you did, I want you to fit your conference and your event into my skill set. You want what Chantal is advising us, what we are advising you, is to fit your skill set, tailor your expertise into their vision, their organization, and their strategic objective. And how do you do that? Is by asking exploratory questions that are open-ended. Open-ended question. What is your current strategic direction now? What is the organization focusing on presently? I saw you focus on this in 2022. Is this the same focus that you're having in 2023? What is your present strategic objective for your upcoming conference?
Oh, that's good. Strategic. Listen, organizations love KPIs and strategy.
Right? How are you presently looking to measure, or what is your selection criteria for your next speaker? You hear the questions? So when you ask those exploratory questions, it's after that conversation. It's one, either in the conversation, you rephrase or restate exactly what they said to you, because they're literally telling you how to close them. Hello. They are literally in that conversation telling you how to close them by giving you the information. So you may have the opportunity on that call to restate or to rephrase what they said to you, or at a subsequent conversation, because obviously they would not have been expecting to have that talk with you. In a subsequent conversation, you pitch your speaker sheets based on the intel. Somebody type in the chat, intel. Based on the intel you would have discovered on that call. So you already know what their theme is. You already find out what are the
pain points that they're looking to alleviate.
Yeah, you're looking at what are the key KPIs, the key performance indicators they're looking in selecting a speaker. And you put all those like at the top of your speaker sheet. That should be your opening sentence. So if they say that they're looking at expanding inclusion or having courageous conversations, you hear those keywords, that should be bold. First sentence, as a keynote speaker, my expertise, or you just start, my expertise is leading courageous conversations. Like, oh, this is what we're looking for, because our upcoming keynote is about courageous conversation. So you want to be, discoverable. You want to have a keynote requires keywords. Ooh.
I love it.
I say your
Yeah.
keynote requires keywords.
Keywords.
And you discover those keywords in having key exploratory conversations.
That is essential. So do your research and have the courage to have those exploratory conversations. That is how you land a keynote and do it consistently.
And now, and even as we discuss that, as we talk about the key components of your talk, these are the core components: your idea, your introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Now, I'll be honest, many people haven't reached that step, which is actually getting on the stage. And one of the things we love and we enjoy is having these conversations with our community, having the conversations with you. And there's an easy way for you to accomplish that, in terms of leveraging our expertise, leveraging the community, leveraging the conversation, which is what you're doing now.
Absolutely, because that one strategy alone, we just saved somebody like years of being on the sidelines and wanting to speak. So now you have a game plan, an actionable game plan that even after this training, you can start your Dream 50 list. You can start picking up the phone tomorrow morning and calling and getting a hot list of individuals you can send your proposal to, right? So that was worth the price of admission, right? But to go faster and deeper and then have that strategic conversation consistently, you're gonna need some support, right? You're gonna need some support, and that's what we're here for, to give you that support, both in our general community, and even if you wanted to take it a step further and work with us individually, right? We have that as an option as well. So, but let's get right into it. We love that success is a matter of team, not necessarily time.
So here are some of the key components that you want to be looking at in your talk. So now that you've learned that talk, now that you're all excited, we've seen the excitement of many of our clients who just get booked speaking engagements after speaking engagements after speaking engagements, because they use our system, they use our team, they use the community, they attend these trainings just like you, and they're able to get there faster. And that's the design of this community, get you there faster. So now that you're on that stage, or you're about to go on that stage, and they said yes.
You got to prepare, right? You got to show up and over deliver. So let's talk about it. Some of what we mentioned may remind you of when you were crafting an essay for your academic career, if you went to school. But if not, this is going to be a very good reminder of the essentials, right? You're going to need first a very clear idea, and your central idea should be anchored in that information that you got from your exploratory conversation. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're dealing with retention issues with our staff. We keep getting good talent, but they keep moving to other companies. We need someone who's going to help with that. Mm-hmm. Well, that anchors your central idea. It speaks about the goals that should be accomplished, right? So once you're very clear on everything that your host has said that they care about, they care about the issue of retention, then that's going to anchor your talk. You're not going to go from talking about, retention to then talking about, how to dress for success. No, you're not going to talk knowing the core idea is retention and then start talking about, pets, right? You're going to be focused on your central idea, because once you have that, then you could start to build out the body of your speech.
So I don't want you to miss this, right? It's your central idea. So your second conversation, they say, yes, we're ready for you. You had the exploratory question. Here's your next tier in actually preparing what's your central idea. You need to ask 3 core questions. What do you want my audience to think? How do you want them to feel? And what action do you want them to take? These three core questions will feed into how you craft your central idea. But we're going to break that down a little further in further discussions. But I want you just to really understand your beginning, as Franklin Covey says, as Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. And as you craft that message, your main idea, Shanta puts it so eloquently, what does your event host care about?
Yes.
That's all that matters, because you're there to serve, 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 serve. Type that in the chat, serve. You're leading with service, all right? So now that you have a clear view of your, what we call your key idea, your core idea, now you go straight into your introduction. So the golden thread of your central theme is going to pitch off your introduction. We always say your key introduction should start with a story, because you are painting a picture, you're captivating the hearts of your people by starting off either with an anecdotal story, or it could be a lived story, something that you actually lived through. And that story doesn't have to be chronological. It's actually, in true essence, it's a moment. What's that moment that is tied to your theme? Because you want to launch off good, right? What's that moment that's tied to the theme of retention? All right. Your retention story could be "Stay with me, baby." It could be something that your mom always says to you when you're leaving, right? When you're leaving to go to school with your sibling, and she always says to you, "Don't leave your baby sister behind," or "Girl, hold my hand." That's this little phrase that you take with you, and you're taking your entire audience around the conversation of retention, which really could be personified in an anecdotal way of "Girl, hold my hand," or "Stay with me, baby. Don't leave her behind." So that golden thread about staying, about care, about
accountability, it's so deeper than just that one story, but the story is what's going to be most memorable, that will help the lessons that you share throughout your speech really resonate with people to the point where they take them home and they share them with others.
That's right.
That's that stickiness factor that anchoring your introduction in a story has. And it follows you throughout your talk, right? So that is the power of storytelling in your introduction. And some of you may want to save your most juicy stories for the middle of the speech, and then talk about, have maybe a provocative statement as part of your introduction. So beginning with a bold statement, a challenge, a common assumption that you disrupt in the introduction will help your audience lean in a little bit and get curious about what you're going to say next. That is the power of using a provocative statement for your introduction. It piques the interest, and it makes people immediately intrigued and want to listen and stick around for more.
So here's a disruptive statement. So as a male speaker, you could say something disruptive about women. Here it goes, right? So for
Watch out now.
So for instance, people commonly say women run the world. I don't believe that. So that makes people lean in.
Yeah, it's controversial.
Right?
I like it.
Right? But I actually believe it's women that nurture the world. So controversial, provocative statement that allows the room to lean in and to listen in and to learn as you take them through this journey. Another way in terms of in developing, now that we talked about the idea, what's your core idea? I hope you guys are taking notes. So first is your core idea, your introduction. The introduction can lead with an anecdotal story. Then we go into the discussion of your the body. So the core idea, your introduction could be an anecdotal story or provocative statement. And now we're talking about the body. How do you craft this body? Now, the body of your talk must be a dialogue. The body of your talk must be a dialogue, not a monologue where you're just dumping information towards your listeners, but it's a conversation that allows yourself to dance on stage while they're dancing in their seats with you.
I love that. There's a dance taking place and you are the leader of that dance.
And every dance has a logical process.
Yes.
It is not schizophrenic. It's not guesswork. It's not even at the highest levels of creativity, there's still a method to that quote unquote madness, right? So use a clear logical structure. So your body should be organized in a way that is easy for that person to follow. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. Whatever is that dance move, that dialogue, that decision that you're taking people through. Let that be in such a way that your audience can follow. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because even to the most creative mind, who, you see yourself as a right brain type of person, the objective of your talk, we're talking about the central idea, is to honor what the visionary of the host for the stage. But here's another underlying fact. You want to position yourself as a teacher, someone that people are willing to follow. Have you ever gone to an event? You say, man, that was great, it was good, it felt good, it felt awesome. What did you learn? I remember. It's the teaching moment that's attached to the lesson, that's attached to the story, that moves you from being a good moment to moving into a movement. You don't just want to give people a good moment. You want to be quotable. You want to be part of people's dining room discussions. You want to understand that the lesson that's attached to the story, because the story is attached to the lesson, or the lesson is attached to the story allows it to be memorable, but the point allows it to be quotable.
I love that.
The story allows it to be memorable, so they will remember you by your story. I remember people keep running up to me and say, I remember your story about your mom when she sent you to the shop.
Yeah.
And after they say the story, they go straight to the lesson.
Yeah.
So that's how your story and the body of your work is designed in such a strategic way to create engagement, to create dialogue, and more importantly, to position yourself as a trusted advisor, as a coach, or as a consultant. People are able to see your brilliance.
Absolutely. Now, when you are actually putting pen to pad and writing down your ideas, you want to organize your speech in such a way that it's not rote memorization where you write word by word that you want to say. If you are the person who cannot do it without having to write everything, I'm that person, then your key components are going to be still the same. For example, I'm a person who has to see all of the words written that I want to speak. However, I am not so beholden to that script that when I present my talk, if I miss a word, then I'm flat out on my butt embarrassed, right? Because what I do in preparation for the speech is I first start with the introduction. What is the main story that I'm telling? And then I build it out with the key main points of my body. So, for example, the body, 3 main points, it's going to really be the meat to any keynote talk that's between 15 minutes to 30 minutes. If you're going a little longer, then you're obviously going to add more main points. And inside of each of those points, you should have 2 main components. You should have information as well as examples. And if you want to be a little more fancy, add a story, right? Remember, we're not talking about long stories. We're talking about a specific moment in time. Integrate inside of those main points analogies and metaphors, because don't take for granted that everyone's going to speak your same language and understand your expertise. Sometimes you got to break it down a little bit, right? We have a NASA physicist who we work with, and he loves to speak about science and physics, but he understands that when he's speaking to inner city youth, that they may not know what E squared minus whatever means, right? I need to break it down a bit. So what he's done with our support is to translate his knowledge of science into something that his audience already loves, which is basketball, right? And that is the power of using relevant examples and analogies to make your audience experience the same level of understanding as if they were the expert already.
So let's recapture all that juicy stuff Shanta just shared with us. So we're talking about your key idea, and I want us to remember this because we want to keep keep this vision before you, your key idea. Your idea comes from your event organizer who is saying to you what their priority is. The introduction, which we advise you to start off with an anecdote or story or provocative statement that allows your audience to lean in. And then thirdly, the body. The body is required to have maximum 3 key points that unpack this discussion. And each point you lead with your topic statement, your clear learning lesson, and you solidify that with a story, an antidote,
an analogy,
some form of example that causes it to be relatable and rememberable, and more importantly, evidence, statistics, studies, key mentions, articles, journals that allows your talk to have authority. It's not just your opinion, it's not pseudoscience, but allows people to know, hey, you are well read, you take this position on a matter from a studied position, and more importantly, you are prepared. All right.
And finally, you want to build out your conclusion. Now, your conclusion should be a very clear call to action based on what your promises are to the host, right? So, for example, if you are speaking at a retirement conference and the client is AARP, and they said, hey, we want more seniors 65 and over to understand the importance of knowing when to ask for help, tapping into the resources of counseling, of medical care, etc. So they already gave you that. Now, at the end of your speech, you want to design the call to action that honors that, right? So it doesn't have to be explicit, like, hey, I'm glad that you were moved by this powerful conversation. Now, go tomorrow and set an appointment with your healthcare provider because it's important to get checked and be well, right? That is a very blatant call to action. But you're a dynamic speaker, so you're not going to make it so obvious that this is what you're doing. Instead, you can have a call to action that's beautifully woven into your conclusion. It can be through a story. I'll never forget that moment when I held my mother's hand for the last time as she laid on the hospital bed, inhaling her last breath. It meant everything in the world for me to have dropped everything just to be there for that moment. She knew that it was probably her final days, but for me, I just showed up as a daughter, ready to be there whenever my mom needed me. There's someone who's depending on you to show up. Your job is to be present, to be available, and be willing to let them in. It's important to know that even as we grow old, we're not alone. Even though our hair may gray and our wrinkles may appear on our face, we're still valuable. You are valuable. There are people who love you, who need you, and who honor you. Invite them into their life, into your life. Because again, no man is an island. Thank you. Right?
Well, that wasn't a story, right? That was a real account. And even as you craft that type of discussion and dialogue, it allows you to place the audience in your world. Either in your world as someone who has to be a caregiver or someone who requires care. And from an experiential standpoint as a speaker, I know a little bit about care, either having to provide care as a care support, or the audience who's listening to you, they require care. And you could end in such a, what we call a 90-degree angle. And we know a couple of people who can take care of it.
That's right.
Without you even mentioning their name. But it allows you to honor the room through your lived experience, through an authentic discussion, and more importantly, through a dignified conversation.
Absolutely, because as human beings, we are dynamic, right? We not only receive information through our ears, but through our senses. So as you are giving your speech, appeal to the senses. You'll show the story, as we'll mention a little later. And you'll also appeal to the heart. That's going to be central, because what makes you an unforgettable speaker is really connecting with the human experience. So as much as you can integrate that throughout your talk, through the use of personal stories, through the use of humor, right? It's okay to laugh too. That is what's going to make you memorable.
So we just talked about the conclusion, call to action. And the final aspect of a call to action is leave people in their hearts. So yes, you took them through the facts and the statistics. You talked about your story. You talked about your lived experience. You're teaching, you're moving them. But always remember, at the end of your talk, leave people in their hearts. Because your call to action, where you are moving people into either feeling a way, thinking of something, or moving them to action, people take action not just by what they think, but also how they feel.
People take action not by what they think only, but also by what they feel.
And your talk is connecting the mind and the heart. It's a mind and heart conversation and a dance. And as you took them through the intellectual conversation, now you are aligning their heart discussion. All right. So I want to, to those who lead boardroom conversations, those who are trusted advisors, those of you who may work in spaces that you may think is a more left brain organization. We have had so many people who had to do presentations, keynotes from Bank of America to Wall Street, like Grace, and they understood the power of not just a clear call to action, but leaving your audience in the hearts. All right. So I want to challenge you to do that. All right. For those who may think that the process of a keynote is a more clinical conversation, I want you to know it's a much more strategic conversation, as we've been able to help so many people before. So let's go straight into the other aspect of this dialogue, which would be, I want to talk with you about 3 key strategies. Now, making an unforgettable talk something that is so awe-arising, so ostentatious. How do you do that? I want you to know is to remember your key stakeholders. Now, the aim of every event, as you are being invited as a keynote, is how do I include or be aware in a strategic way about your key stakeholders. Now you might ask yourself the question, who are my key stakeholders? I only know about the event plan, the host.
Right.
They are the key stakeholders. I need to please them.
Come on, let us know who the stakeholders are.
But I want you to know that your key stakeholders in the space will be not just the event host, but the event planner, the production team, and your audience. These 4 key stakeholders is what is going to inform how you craft that keynote and how you deliver that keynote. Because it's not just about getting the keynote and getting paid, but you want to be able to get referrals. You want to be able, that's how you become unforgettable. How do you get key referrals? Because here's what's going to happen. After you have had the discussion about how do you want your audience to feel? What do you want them to think? What action do you want them to take? The production team, the event hosts, they are also working on that strategic objective. And when you're coming in as a keynote speaker, you want to make their job easy. We all want to be pushing in the same direction. And finally, the audience. The event host knows their audience more than you. And they know the vision that they are looking to craft for their community. So as you take into consideration your keynote, you want to be able to deliver it in a timely way. Somebody type in a word in the chat, time. So that the event host and the event manager, they're not pulling off their hair in the backstage like, what's going on? You're running out of time.
That's right. So not only this is very key, and I'm glad you shared that, because you have to be you have to have the interests of each stakeholder in mind. Like, what do they need that is essential? We all know that they need those key things that you're delivering, right? Which is, the feeling, the thinking, the believing, the doing. That is the answer that everybody needs. However, each individual stakeholder has their specific needs. For example, and Molly mentioned the production team. The production team, their biggest need may be for you to show up an extra 30 minutes before to do a mic check. So you want to build that in to delivering. Because at the end, the team is going to have a meeting and they're going to talk about who did what, how, and why. So if you go into the keynote speech approaching yourself with the attitude of service, you think about these stakeholders and say, okay, what are their most pressing needs? And if you want, ask them, right? So there's no assumption. The event host, they're concerned about time because they have an entire agenda to manage, and it would be very derelict of a speaker to use up more time than was allotted for your speech because you were just so passionate about what you had to say. But you should be passionate about serving each stakeholder so that their needs are met.
And that's a key question, because whenever you think about the core stakeholders that are before you, each of them have a specific outcome that they're looking to create. So like the production team, these are conversations, it's a conversation that I have with anytime I go to an event. Hey, what are you guys looking to capture? What are some areas you don't want me to walk? Do I have permission that I could go into the audience? Hello? Are you guys having any technical challenges so that I know where my limitations are? Where's my key lighting? Because all these things will become a nightmare if you're out of the light, you sporadically move into the audience, there's key feedback. Because at the end of the day, the problem that you create only reflects on the production team. Because people say, but what people who are looking either on the live stream, why is it so dark? Why is the cameraman not getting a good shot? Why is the mic feeding back? Everybody just looking at production. But little do they know, you're the one that came in and disrupted the entire space.
And not in a good way.
All right. So these are some of the key questions you want to ask, prep them for, give them the lead time to, preparing your slides before. So that's another key thing. Do you have permission to have your branding on your slides? Is the event just, a consolidation of one brand, meaning the thematic brand? Do you have permission to make an offer? Be very clear what that offer can be. So be very, very clear. Ask questions, ask it one way, ask it another way, because you don't want anything lost in translation. And then you make, what we call an unintended consequence, and then you're not invited again. All right.
Ooh, no unintended consequences.
So you want to ask the question of the event host, then re-ask that same question to the event planner, so that it's not lost in translation.
And you guys will get this. I know that you're taking notes, very quickly, but you'll get this in the checklist that really speaks about the stakeholders, what stakeholders are typical for your average event, and what questions that each stakeholder should be asked.
Also, I want you to challenge it yourself by remember to listen. This here is going to be a very, very key conversation. I'll tell you why this is important. Because as you prepare yourself, as you prepare to have this conversation, I remember just a couple of days ago sitting down and listening to my daughter. She's all excited. She's 4 years old. Her name is Genesis. And every time she comes from school, she runs straight to the office. She knocks on the door. If she doesn't hear a response or she hears me on the phone, then she cracks the door and quietly walks in. And then when she sees her mother, she jumps on the table and she's like, Daddy. On this day, she's like, Daddy, I just wanted to let you know I didn't cry at dance class, and she's excited to report she dominated her day. The tears are dry. And I'm listening to her. And as I listen to her, and she's complete in what she has to say to me, then she said, okay, Daddy, can I have a kiss? So you can go back to, what you need to do. The reason I'm sharing this story, there is a reward at the end of your talk or during your talk if you become a masterful listener. What do I mean by that in its truest sense? In October, I remember we both had the opportunity to speak on Lisa Nichols' stage.
And for those of you who may not be familiar with Lisa Nichols, she's the #1 motivational speaker in the world, female. And she just happens to be a great partner of ours.
And doing that keynote that we did together, the room was being stirred as we delivered. And as people, you see, once you follow these key themes as we describe it, people will join the conversation because your intention is to have a dialogue. And I don't know if Chantal remembers this. While I was talking, someone in the audience joined the conversation. You remember?
I remember.
And she started to share. She's like, that's exactly what I thought, XYZ. And it was in that moment, as a speaker, I could have chosen two pathways. One, ignore because I have my agenda. I have cooked a meal and I'm here to serve it up. Or two, listen to what the room is asking for, engaging for, because this is what we worked for, to have a dialogue. And in that moment, I chose not to shove my meal, towards her, and it's not what she ordered, but to actually deliver what she ordered off the menu. And it's in that conversation where I acknowledge she was able to be seen, supported, and served. The entire room shifted. But you have to be prepared as a speaker to serve at that level and to be aware of what's happening in your environment. Be able to, one, see. Because sometimes we look at people while we're not actually looking at them, right?
Right.
Sometimes we're staring at people, but inside your mind and your eye, you are going over your notes and like, okay, where am I? So something is like what I call a dead stare. Let people feel your warmth.
And your presence, because what Mwale did is called something, a technique that as we continue this journey, you'll know more about. It's disruptive proximity. He actually went into the audience in that moment and didn't see the woman as a heckler or a disruptor, but actually saw her as a fellow co-speaker, right? And he actually gave her the mic and she was able to share and contribute to the point that he was making, right? I don't know how you felt, but some of us who are, we may feel uncomfortable to do that, and it'll come with time. But understand that the heart behind it was to truly make her be a part of it and feel seen, served, and supported. And so you'll have opportunities like that as a speaker to have disruptive proximity and get close to people, maybe put your head on their shoulder as you are demonstrating a point. But the key teaching moment here is don't be afraid to be so committed to what you came to deliver that you forget to serve.
And in addition to what was mentioned, as you connect with the audience and you're having a heart-to-heart, face-to-face intimate moment, you want that intimate moment to allow others to be a part of it. So even as I'm speaking to Chantal, and then I put my hand on her shoulder and I look into the audience, she still feels connected and you feel invited to the one-on-one conversation. There's another technique that I want you to remember in measuring and monitoring your audience is understand diversity in your audience. Because every event host wants everyone to feel welcome, to feel appreciated, to feel seen, to feel heard. So if you're in an audience and it's a multi-ethnic audience, I want you to speak to every type of culture and space that's in the room, either by proximity in terms of standing, or, hear this carefully, or calling them by name. This is what I do as a speaker. Sometimes, not sometimes, all the time I will arrive early and be able to listen to the conversations, sometimes draw analogies where someone tells me where they're working, what field they're working in. So when I'm delivering my speech, I call them by name. So I say, like you, Sandy, as you work in that pharmacy. She's like, oh my God, he remembers me.
Yeah.
Come on, somebody. So you gather intel in the room, you're listening to the room, and I hear somebody saying, ooh, that's juicy, right? And you include it. So it does two things. It signals to the event host, one, he cares about my audience because he's calling them by name. Because as you say, Sandy or Susie, that event host knows who is Sandy and who is Susie. And then Susie also knows that, hey, you just called me. And all of the people around Sandy and Susie, they begin to assume like, man, this guy not only knows you, but he knows us. So there's a multiply effect that happens in the room when you listen to the room.
Yes, yes.
All right. And finally, when you listen to the room, I always say to every keynote speaker, come prepared with a catalog. Because once you come full, yes, you have your agenda. You want to be able to be flexible to move wherever the room requires of you.
Yes.
And you don't want to be coming, kicking and screaming, well, no, I didn't prepare for this. I don't have a story for this. She just mentioned something that I don't know how to connect to. So thank you for saying it. And then you move on to your agenda. That person's going to feel rejected. They're not going to feel accepted or even heard. So come with a catalog. Type it in the chat. Come with a catalog. Come prepared. Come with everything. Come with your whole self to the stage. So when you begin to truly have a dialogue on that keynote, you're able to move with the room and lead them to the desired outcome.
Love that. That is some good information. Thank you so much.
All from just listening to my sweetie pie,
Oh.
Genesis. There's a reward. When you listen, I want you to always remember this. When you listen to your room, there's always going to be a reward at the end.
Make it unforgettable, guys. Make it unforgettable. You do that by being authentic. Remember to be authentic. Your audience knows if you're showing up just to give a bunch of information or if you're truly sold and bought into their transformation. Through the use of your language, it's okay to be a little colloquial, right? And not have every word end with a crisp T and end with a powerful S, right? It's okay to use some homegirl and homeboy dialogue, all right?
You guys hear it in my accent. I'm a Trinbagonian, I'm a Caribbean boy, and I don't, switch it up. Well, I'm speaking to people in Europe. And how's your day, bloke? No, I'm gonna be I'm not gonna be a British guy. I'm a Caribbean boy, and be authentic. Let people get to see you, get to connect with you, the real you. We are living in a time people are craving authenticity. It's the greatest currency. Authenticity is the greatest currency. It's of greater value than pound sterling. It's of greater value than Canadian dollars. Authenticity will open doors that you couldn't even dream of. So we encourage you as you stand boldly on stages, as you position yourself for courageous conversations, be authentic. Let people see you.
Absolutely. And be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to be vulnerable. So in your storytelling, don't have all of the stories be about the mountaintop. Let some of them be about the valley as well. Those times where you wanted to give up, but decided not to. Be very explicit about what happened. What did you feel? What was going through your mind? Show up and share and be willing to be vulnerable. So I'm excited about all that we shared and discovered today.
Yep. I hope you've taken great notes. We took you through the journey of understanding what it really means to be an unforgettable speaker. Not just how do you land that talk, because that's important, right? You're like, man, I want to be an unforgettable speaker. But our goal is to show, as we have delivered, to show you the key components of how you land and craft
an unforgettable keynote speech.
As we looked at the structure, the key idea, the introduction, the body, the conclusion.
Absolutely.
And then looking at those three key themes,
of being unforgettable, right? Which starts with remembering your stakeholders, then listening, being an active listener, and finally
being authentic. So I hope this has guided your heart, readjusted your strategy, challenged your present rhythm, and more importantly, have provided you an avenue to get there faster. At the League of Experts, that's our goal, our mission. Many of our students, they've been able to move from being underbooked to being overbooked, being underpaid to having true, strong paying speaking engagements.
Consistently, and that's the key, right? We don't want you to be a one-hit wonder. Our goal is to really support you in getting consistent engagements and building a business around your intellectual property, which is your ideas.
That's right.
Your ideas.
So if you are looking at this training, somebody shared it to you, we invite you, be a part of this community. It's an exclusive community. Someone did you the favor. Someone's showing you some love right now. That's joinloe.com so that you can be a part of the conversation. And if you are a part of the community and you want to have a strategic conversation with us to put some fuel, some fire, and take you to great momentum as we support you in creating, connecting, converting, and building community around your thought leadership. We're your partners in prosperity and
possibility. I am Chantel.
I'm Mwali.
And we will see you in the League of Experts.